Hi, everyone. We'll be starting in just a minute and a half or so here, so just hang tight while everybody gets loaded onto the webinar. Thanks so much. All right, we're going to get started. So thanks everybody for joining us today for Mastering IT Automation with Bacon's newest capabilities. We've been kind of showing this series for the last couple months as we start to roll out our scheduling feature and job chaining. One of the things we realized is we actually have some other cool things in this version called 5.2 that's coming out. So we wanted to maybe show off a couple of those as well. So we'll do a little reiteration today on some of the scheduling and so forth, and I'll still give an overview of what Bacon does overall. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to do some quick introductions here. My name is John Marcato, and joining me today is Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers and the best demo guy in the world. Thanks for joining me, Dave.
Thanks for having me back.
Always. And we're also going to cover a little bit of housekeeping here before we get going. So we'll do that quickly just because we don't have a ton of time. If you haven't used GoToWebinar before, it does have a bunch of little features in it. And one of the key things, there'll be some polls that'll pop up. They're really easy to interact with. So just answer those quickly. We'll get through those fast. At the end, if you wouldn't mind filling out the survey, you'll get entered in the raffle to win a GoPro. We love giving away GoPros over here. So win yourself one of those. And also you can ask questions in the GoToWebinar app. There's a little section for that, and we will answer those in line as we can here. And we'll record all those too, so we can answer them later if there's anything more complex to get into. So with that, also you can join us on our YouTube channel, and you can see our Bacon Bits, which are little videos that can be used for learning about features or for training. We do update those weekly, so there's 100 and some odd in there. It's pretty helpful. And with that, I think we'll move on to some polls. So Lane, if you wouldn't mind firing up the first poll. All right, which capability is most important for your organization? And just kind of want to see what priorities are for people here. It helps us kind of gear things and learn a little bit about you and what's important to you. So once you fill all that out, it will register, and then we will be done. It looks like recurring patch schedules is pretty high on the list, which is good. I just said that. So, and then vulnerability remediation, which is a very unique feature to Bacon. We're really the only one out there that not only finds vulnerabilities, but can fix all three kinds. So that's patches, third-party software patches, and configurations. So we'll get into that a little bit. And out-of-date software identification, I think, was important too. We do that as well. And the user notification service got a little bit of a thing there, and that's actually going to be a little bit of a focus in part of the webinar today, so that's pretty helpful. Lane, why don't we launch the second poll? This one's a little more straightforward. Just like to know what OSs people are supporting in their environment. And that way we can, everybody, it always seems that 100% of people have Windows, and then there's some subset of Mac, iOS, Linux, all of which we support. Yeah, a third, kind of a third of people have the others. So a lot of Windows, And that's pretty typical. And we can do some really good things with Windows. And today's demo in particular, I think is helpful because it takes advantage of a particular Windows feature pretty well. So we'll get into that in a moment. Moving on from the polls, we're going to just kind of give a quick overview here because sometimes people don't know much about Bacon. Bacon, sometimes called an endpoint manager, an MDM, vulnerability manager. I think of it as a vulnerability remediator with a really, really strong endpoint management tool set. It is designed to work with enterprise class companies. It does a lot of things very effectively. So we believe in visibility, control, and automation in that order. So you got to be able to see things, and you've got to be able to see them real time. You'll see real time everything down there at the bottom. If you're using something like Intune, you might have noticed that it's not a real-time engine. It is a policy engine and can take days for a basic task to get rolled out. And there's no way to control that, no way to change it. And we actually love Intune for a few things that it does well, but it is, kind of a limited tool. And so we sort of see it as a complementary tool. There are other tools out there that we sort of directly compete with. Tanium as an example, a very expensive tool, very kludgy to use. Not to pick on our competitors so boldly, but it is true. They're only can do about half of what we can do in terms of vulnerability remediation. So I think most people will be in much better hands with us. We do patch, we do third-party patch. We are cross-platform, as you kind of noticed from our polls. And we do have built-in remote control and built-in inventory and monitoring. And so that's really helpful. So you can monitor and know about all the details on your machine. We know a lot more about machines than other systems do. If you compare this to something like Ninja, they have a total of 20 columns that you can put, get basically data points. We have 45 and counting right on our main page, and you can create all kinds of beautiful views that really get the data that you're looking for. Dave, maybe you can show that views element today just for a second, because we didn't have it before 5.0. We're currently in 5.1, and it's made a huge difference in terms of how fast you can do work. So I really, really like it. But I think the biggest thing is just all of these things being together are really what matters. And one of the gaps that we had was, while we do have patch scheduling already in the tool, we noticed a couple of more advanced functions that people really wanted. And that's the ability to have pre-approved patches, so more of an approval type of workflow, where you can either manually approve or have category-based and operating system-based pre-approvals, including with time delays. So if you approve Windows patches that are security updates, you could say, but they have to be at least 3 days after release, right? And that saves you from being the guinea pig on Patch Tuesday. So there's some really neat things you can do there. But you can also manually approve them. And then what that does is that when you have schedules, which can be applied to all different groups of computers based on really cool dynamic groups, another feature that most of our competitors don't have, which, real-time changing dynamic groups based on criteria. You can then be updating those things and those groups on a schedule. So you really, in some cases, never have to touch machines, and they'll update. And people go, well, isn't that what Windows Update does? Well, we wish it did that, but there's a bunch of functions, even if you know that all the GPO is cold, that doesn't really do that. It doesn't do the time delays. It does do the window of time that it can happen in. So there's some things you can do, but also those GPOs don't always make it to all the machines, particularly if you're doing remote work. And so since we're controlling that at the central hub, there's never going to be a time where machines get the wrong patching at the wrong time, or weird things happen. And you're going to have ultimate control that's easy to understand, easy to see. And it's not like GPOs where you don't really know, did the machine get the GPO? It's all a mystery, right? They've been making that system for 24 years, and they still haven't figured out how to make it more visible and what's happening under the hood. So with all of that said, Dave's going to show us a couple cool things about our one of our newer features related to being able to schedule or really set deadlines for jobs. And not to steal all your thunder, Dave, I think I'll switch it over to you so you can do a little show and tell.
Yeah, no worries. All right, let's go take a look. So as John said, we're going to show off one of the new features in 5.2 that allows us to schedule these reboots as deadline jobs. And so the big benefit here is let's assume that we want to get patches kind of pre-installed in the environment and then enforce the reboot at a later time. Today in Bacon, you're able to go ahead and queue up those patches. So I can go through, let's say, I'll pick my little demo machine in here, this guy right here. And if you look at my available patches, I have one that needs a reboot and one that does not. So today I can very simply go through here, schedule my patch needs a reboot, make it a deadline job if I'd like. And what that'll do is it'll actually allow me to specify a time that the user, or specify a deadline. And if the user doesn't patch and reboot by that time, the system will do it for you. However, the key thing there is I said patch and reboot together. So if I push this deadline job out right now, it's not going to install right now. It's actually asking the user to kind of approve both actions, both the installation of the patch and the reboot at their schedule. That'll work for a patch like this because it requires a reboot, but there are other patches I may install that do not. And so what we'd like to kind of enable you to do is get those easy patches out of the way. So like this security intelligence update, I can easily install this without bugging my user. But again, I still probably want a good reboot in there as well. So what I'm able to do now is I can go through here, just as an example, and choose my endpoint, schedule my deadline, or excuse me, not schedule my deadline job, just use a one when connected. This will allow me to push it out right away. So if this machine's offline, next time it pops in the system, we'll push it out. Or if it's currently online like it is right now, it'll go right away. So in this scenario, this patch will get pushed out to the user, completely invisible, behind the scenes, and just get it done. Now, as the admin, I also want to enforce a reboot, and that's the portion that I want to separate from the patching action. So now with this new version of Bacon, I'm able to go to my endpoint screen, and up in actions, if you're familiar with Bacon, you'll know about the reboot button. Prior to this build, if you clicked reboot, it would say, are you sure? And then reboot the machine right away. These days, though, it does allow us to schedule it. So if I click reboot right here, now you'll see again, very familiar screen. And I have the option of rebooting at a certain time. So I can say, hey, everybody, leave your machines on. I'll reboot at like 5 p.m. on a Friday. Or in my case, I do like the deadline feature. I like to kind of give people a little bit of control. So I can schedule a deadline job, let's say for end of month. And so basically they have this entire time to figure out when they want to schedule a reboot. They'll get a pop-up on their machine that'll say, hey, it's time, pick a time, or by the 31st, we'll do it for you. So let's take a look at what that certain portion looks like. I've already gone ahead and pushed that job out. So if I go back to my machine here, like peep my logs, you'll see I'm pushing this little endpoint reboot. And so this is actually queued on that machine. From the user perspective, if I go over to my screen remote, hopefully I'm still logged in. There we go. You'll see a reboot required. So in this scenario, the patch has already been installed. I'm good to go there. This is just the follow-up reboot that I'm now chaining or kind of passing off to the user to do it at their time. So like I said, we can pick now. We can do it in 1 hour, tomorrow, or they can pick a specific time and date. So it allows us a little bit more flexibility, especially because you can tag this onto other things too. It doesn't have to be just patching related. If you have any kind of like GPOs or registry key changes you've made, you can make those changes now while all of your machines are online, and then just make sure you can enforce a reboot at some point whenever the user has time to do so. There's a lot of like nice flexibility we have with that option. So that's just a quick look at this feature. Now, John, I know we wanted to go over both views and also kind of a peek at the previous scheduling features we were looking at previous webinars. So I'll move over to how our automated patching works. So as John was saying, we're able to set up patching approvals. Actually, switch over to my other lab here in a second. And so what this allows us to do is auto approve these different patches by category. So like John said, you can choose to only install these after 3 days, right? So we'll give it some time. And then once 3 days of this patch being published, all of my machines on this schedule will be able to install this automatically. I think it's pretty good for all these patches that don't really disturb anything, but still need to be pushed out, right? Now on the actual scheduling side, let me just bump over to my lab here. What you're going to see is the ability to schedule patching or any kind of job with all the difficulty of just scheduling an Outlook meeting, really. So we have a calendar here. This allows you to go through and get very granular and say, I would like to patch my machines on a specific day of the month. As you see here, we can kind of start or set a start and end date and then go through and get very, very, very fancy. So again, weekly, repeat every couple weeks, what days you want to repeat, when you want this to end, in this case, keep going forever. And this is like a really nice mechanism to essentially automate a lot of these patching activities or just other maintenance activities where you can, and kind of keep it very approachable, very usable. And really, you don't really have to bring too much to the table, right? You just kind of walk through the UI, it's all a wizard. And then the feature, I guess we kind of can't show at the moment just due to time, is you're also able to have job chaining now as well. So you can have this thing execute a series of jobs and based on the success and failure, kind of react to different things. So there's a ton of flexibility kind of built into the system that should be able to help a lot of different environments. Now, before we go too far, I do want to take a quick look at views. So I'm going to go back to my beta server here. And what John was referring to is we now have views built into most tables in Bacon. You can see there's one up here too. I know our endpoints table has some defaults made. This allows you to essentially change everything on this table and then save it. And you can also share these with your coworkers. So this is a beta server. We kind of push different views here to test them out. You can see here. By default, we have these three with the little star next to them. So we can say have a Mac OS specific view, and it'll change the columns that we see. Or we can have one specific to patching. Again, changes these columns. The nice thing here, in my opinion, though, is really the ability to share them with other people in the system. So if you have like a certain view that works for your desktop technicians, or you want to make sure everyone's on the same page with what this page looks like and kind of what your team is able to monitor easily, that's what this feature is going to be very helpful for. Not pictured here, it also takes into account any kind of filtering too. So occasionally as I'm like troubleshooting and doing stuff, I'll make a view with certain filters just to save me the time of kind of bouncing back and forth. And so there's just tons of like really nice, let's say creature comforts, honestly, that we've built into this latest version of Bacon as well. So that's kind of just a quick overview of those features, John, but anything else you wanted to add on to there?
No, I just think the views, it's such a simple thing. And we do also have grouping, which is more for targeting of jobs, but does the same kind of, you can, anything that we're tracking about machines, you can use as a grouping methodology. That's for dynamic groups. You can also do static groups. But with views, it's really more about being able to quickly see the things in the context you want to see them. I just love the fact that we can sort up and down, we can move the columns side to side, only show the columns we want to see, run whatever filters we want on there, and then save that view. All that's exportable too. I know we don't get time to mention everything about Bacon, but everything that you look at on any table in Bacon can be exported instantaneously to Excel. And so it can be used for a lot of other capabilities. That's true of our patch compliance tables, our vulnerability compliance tables, endpoints tables, software tables. It's very, very rich with that kind of stuff. But I think the main thing with views is that once you spend a few minutes setting up your sort of top 10 views, whenever you come into Bacon, you can do things very, very rapidly. And our goal is to really think about IT people, up and down the chain, right? Whether you're, in your first job as a tier 1 sort of help desk support person, or whether you're the manager, or whether you're an architect or something like that. This tool is going to allow you to know a lot about machines, get into machines, make changes on those machines, make changes to a lot of machines at once. And once you can do all of that and automate away a lot of that work, it really allows IT people to do what they're actually even better at, which is solve the more challenging problems and get in front of end users and stakeholders who really, really want you to be proactive and want to feel like you're solving bigger issues, right? Let's get rid of some of these more boring tasks and make them simpler for you and your team. And that's why having a really good tool in endpoint management, especially a real-time tool, is so important. So I think these are a few good touch points. We've been changing it up with our webinars and doing this slightly shortened format instead of the hour-long where we tend to do deep dives. We find that when people want to do deep dives, they like to do one-on-one demos. And those are all available to any of you. If you want to get in there and ask your own specific questions and really dig into it, we would love to do that with you. Or they like to go on our Bacon Bits videos and kind of cut and, or pick and choose between the things they want. So let us know in the survey if you like kind of this short form option, where we talk about very specific things. We certainly appreciate the feedback. Also, I did get a question in here. Let's just give this a chance. Is mobile application of Bacon in the works for the future? Yeah, so we've kind of thought about the mobile application, but most of this stuff that we do is pretty sensitive, and the idea of, you know, having a mobile app where it is mobile friendly, you can see it on in the web view, but I think most of this stuff, we've sort of decided that it wasn't as worth it. You know, we've seen other tools like Pulseway that really focused a lot on the mobile app, and it's got huge security problems. It's incredibly bereft of capabilities, and I think that's because the things that you would be doing from the mobile app, we think you should probably be doing when you're sitting in front of a laptop. So can you receive alerts on there? Could you get into the UI over mobile? It is possible, but we recommend, you know, that you keep that UI behind not only single sign-on, but certainly two-factor. So that's kind of more of our thinking. So we, you know, if you have good ideas like why the mobile app would be good, I would love to hear your survey results. We're very open-minded. Most of the features we add come from the feedback we get from our clients. So definitely would love to hear more on that. But we've looked at it over the last couple of years and kind of decided against it. So just hopefully that's some helpful feedback for you. Other than that, please fill out the survey. We really appreciate that. And keep coming to our webinars. And we're really looking forward to reading your ideas in there. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll give you the rest of the 8 minutes here so that you get a chance to fill out that survey, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much, everyone.